Hey everyone, welcome back to Automation. So lately I've been thinking that the cars that I've been making haven't been particularly good, and today I really want to challenge myself to make something that's decent. In fact, I've kind of set a very high standard for myself. I've decided that today I want to try and make my Magnum Opus, a masterpiece in design, and that is going to really challenge me. Now for this, I've decided that what I want to do is choose this 2008 coupe body. I know Consider had a considerable amount of difficulty with it last time he was trying to design with it. However, I'm looking to challenge myself here, trying to make some good design choices, and well, this is going to be a Magnum Opus, hopefully. But let's be honest, like, this is a good looking body, and it's going to be difficult to design for, especially because most of the mods that I have are not working. I'm using the open beta, so pretty much everything is going to be vanilla. Now, as I'm going through this stuff, it's really important to note that just because I'm making it this way, and I might like it at the end of it, that doesn't mean that you're going to like it. This is my design, so it might not be the best for everybody. Car design, just by nature, is subjective. There are cars that some people like and other people do not. There are cars that people think are extremely beautiful that others don't agree with. It's just how it is. Now for the sake of this build, I am going to put the quality up, and I'm also going to make choices that I might not have chosen otherwise. Basically, I just want to do some interesting ideas here, and also I do have an idea for a power to weight ratio of 1:1 for this vehicle, which is why I've called it the one. Okay, so what I want to do as well is I want to give it a 60-degree V12, and this is going to be transversely mounted. It will be rear wheel drive, and I guess we'll probably just go with some of the best stuff you can get. So I've raised up the bore and I've sunk down the stroke. Basically, we're going to be able to get a pretty high revving engine out of this, hopefully. Still, 6-liter V12 sounds pretty darn Ferrari to me. Internally, I'm just going to give it some really nice stuff, and we'll turn up the quality of that as well. We're probably not going to even need this quality because this car is going to be light. I'm going to guess it's probably 1,000 kilos at the end of this, maybe less. So we'll probably just go for 1,000 horsepower and call it a day. Oh yeah, I'm going to go VVT and naturally aspirated. That might be a little bit controversial right there. Alright, injection, as you would definitely suspect, ultimate fuel, ITBs, as you would definitely want. And I think that's going to be it for now. No expenses spared, however I am going to make it semi-street legal. We'll just go for good airflow here with 2 straight through exhausts, and that's almost 400 horsepower right out of the gate. Oh wow, 10,000 RPM limit, that sounds excellent to me. Valve float though, keeping us down. Okay, we'll have to work on that, but yikes, this is really nice. Now my goal for this engine and this car in general is to be elegant and not stressed. That's a big thing here, so we'll try and go for 1,000 horsepower just to start off with. First thing first though, gotta increase the exhaust size, and then after that we may end up turning it down just to leave it in like perfect health. We want it to last a long time. Surprisingly, it's actually quite fuel efficient for a V12. Okay, immediately I really like where this is going. We've got 900 horsepower at 9,000 RPM, and that just really goes nicely, so much so that I've turned down the ignition timing just to get a pure 900 horsepower. Also 820 newton meters of torque at 7,200 RPM. This thing is going to fly. Now we just have to make sure that we can get it down to 900 kilos. Alright, now as I mentioned before, I want to use this body right here, the 2008 coupe, although I'm noticing immediately the wheels that it's auto-generated are extremely small, and I have no idea why that is. Hopefully the game is not currently broken right now, but let's go ahead and try and morph this body a little bit to give it a little bit more, I don't know, definition. Thankfully this body has a lot of moving points, so we could like wide body this Ferrari as well. Lots of different options for this, but I do like the way that it was set up normally. I'm just making a few small adjustments. Now I agree with Consider when he was talking about how big this windshield is and you can't bring it down, you can only move it forward. That is a very odd look when you look directly from the front, but from the sides and from the back it looks really nice. Now we do have the option to shrink this kind of pointed nose as well, but I'm gonna leave it out just because I like the point. That might make it really difficult to put a grille on this thing, but yeah, it is a rear or kind of mid-engine. It's on the back axle pretty much, a transverse V12 hovering over the rear, so this thing is going to be a bit of a handful on the streets. But that just means that we can put vents in the back instead of in the front. Yeah, we'll figure that out when we get to it though. Okay, so I'm experimenting with colors a little bit, and it seems like the absolute darkest colors, at least in the base colors, are the ones that mesh the best with this body. Like this purple is really nice, and there's a bunch of different options as well for that, kind of going over to the blues as well. I'm not a big fan of the super dark blue, but I really do like the dark, like forested green as well. Okay, for now I'm gonna go with a plum color. We may end up changing that, but for now the car is purple. And in my attempts to also be different, I've made the top of it black, and I've made a separate carbon fiber black that we can use for trim pieces. And I think the wheels as well are going to be carbon fiber black. Seems like it might be a good color combination there. Might end up changing that, but for now I'm okay with it. So already in this Magnum Opus, or this attempt at a Magnum Opus at least, I've made something that some people will immediately say is not good. And that's okay. Don't worry if that's your opinion. We will continue on anyways, trying to make something decent. Now I do want to try spending a lot of time on this. I'm stressing that more and more, mostly just because I know that it's very easy to just kind of say, okay, that's good enough, but I really want to put some time into this, so that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm just going to start off by putting on some kind of basic wheels, and then awkwardly, they're so weird and small that I'm going to try and fix that first before getting to the actual design of the car. So I'm going to give it a dual clutch with a 7-speed transmission, and right now it's thinking 430 k's an hour, which is pretty darn fast, so we'll just assume that that's correct. We'll keep the quality high as well. This thing is not going to be cheap. Okay, 225s are the widest it'll go, but that doesn't really seem right. That's pretty darn small, probably just because the rims are 20s. Oh yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Now I know this is a very, very subjective thing, but I like big rims, so I'm gonna put big rims on this car. I'm sorry if you don't like them, but that's just kind of how it is. Okay, I'm happy with that just as a general start. We'll have to tune those rim sizes and wheel sizes to get it down to where we want it to be, but for now, this just kind of looks the part, so we can work with that. Okay, so now that everything is sort of balanced in the way that it should be, I think it's time that we actually focus on doing the back first. Just because the front end is going to be really tricky on this. It's not going to be easy at all to make something out of this because it's so sloped, and I don't know, it's just a hard front end to work with, so we'll work with the flatness of the back first and try and make something cool. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is cut out the bottom piece, and I'm trying to do that using one of these pre-made or prefab things that come with the game, but it's not quite working as I'd like it to. Mostly just because it's kind of cutting out most of the body instead of the parts that I want it to. One of the big issues that I have is that I don't have dog tape, unfortunately, so I'm kind of just screwed here without those mods. Okay, I'm gonna go with that for now just because I kind of like it, and also I want to sort of base the exhaust off of something. But we need to put some reasonable exhaust on here too. These options here are good because I can recolor them, but I'm just going to put that there, and obviously it's a V12, so we need two. Just put those like that and make them quite large, and that means I can also color code them to be carbon fiber exhaust tips. Oh yeah, that's kind of nice actually. So there's a lot of carbon fiber back here, and those stick out quite a lot. Okay, now that we have the exhaust sorted out, it's pretty important that we get some other features in there. I want to do sort of a racing brake, which would be down in the middle here. Doesn't make a ton of sense, but this is sort of a race car, and I don't know, I just feel like that's the right way to go. Okay, in terms of taillights, it's going to be, I think, composite lights this time. I'm not going to just be going with the basic ones, as I would normally do. But I want to kind of make something that'll fit this area nicely, and then use circles to fill it in. Like, my go-to lights for cars like these are generally these ones, but these ones just seem a little bit too basic. I think it needs more than just that. Okay, I can kind of see why this body is so hard to work with. The biggest reason is that fixtures are really slow to move on it for some reason, especially around the curves. It's just a very complicated looking structure, so it seems like that's probably why that is. However, now we do have some lights on the back here that I can kind of use as a base. Obviously I can't just leave it like that, it's just not gonna work. Okay, so this looks kind of cool like that, Very unique design. I don't think I've seen anything like this before. I don't know, I'm gonna have to kind of innovate on this one as well, try to make it a little bit more interesting, because that's probably not gonna do it. Okay, so I'm definitely making some weird stuff happen here. Not exactly sure if this is what I'm gonna go with, but I don't mind it. It might be a little bit overly detailed, but it is unique, which is cool. So I might leave that like that, and also our signals are not going to be amber on this car for some reason. We'll just use the main lights as signals, I guess. So I want to fill out the back just a little bit more. Obviously it's got to have something here, and then probably a piece here as well to give some context to the license plate. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Maybe you'll just have to see what I'm talking about. There's a great debate going on inside of me right now, whether or not I should put this above, so it looks like this, or put it below. And I still don't know. For now I'm going to work under the assumption that it's going to be below, and then I'll write badging things on these just to fill in that space, because I don't want to duplicate these lights. Although I haven't tried that yet. Yeah, that does look a little silly. So I might have gone ahead and over-designed this car to the absolute nines. It is just getting ridiculously carbon fiber, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I may end up changing this up, but for now I think I need to move on, because this is kind of consuming my life here. That is a lot of different grills and layers all kind of combined to make one New York license plate stand out. But I mean, if you zoom away and you really squint there, you can see the V12 and all of its goodness, and that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted to be able to see it through the back end, and well, that's exactly what I got. Yeah, I'll come back to that later, but for now I think I'm okay with it. This is getting a little bit nuts. And this car is starting to look more like a robot than anything. Okay, moving on to some of the other important pieces. Yeah, I want to add some detail to this that I haven't really thought about before. Stuff like lips on the back and things that are purposefully made for aerodynamics and actually meant to function properly, because most of the time I just slap a big wing on there and say, yeah, that's good enough. Also, I want to do some door handles, but in a slightly unique way, because a car like this wouldn't ruin the lines by having the door handles somewhere over here. They'd likely be hidden, so we gotta figure that out as well. Oh, actually, we could put them up here. That might work. Okay, I'm gonna do that before I forget. Okay, awkwardly enough, I kinda like that. Although, like, a car like this would be super low, so that does make sense. You'd be opening up the door, and then it would swing kinda up like this, I guess? Maybe a slight gull wing door? Not sure. I'll leave that for now, but might change that too. Lots of things on the list there. Okay, before I forget some of the more basic things, let's put some mirrors on the car, and definitely have to be decent ones here as well. Okay, I've definitely got the mirrors that I want for this, and they're essentially useless, practically speaking, but if you look at them, you can actually see out of the back, theoretically. You're not going to have good rear visibility in this no matter what, so they're mostly there for decoration. Okay, I did not think that wipers would be the hardest part about designing this, but they just don't make sense at all on here. Basically nothing does. And that's when you say, screw it, I'm going for a giant center wiper because nothing else works. And of course it's going to be completely carbon fiber, because how could it not be? Okay, that bend there is really janky, but as long as we have wipers, we're good. Alright, I'm not totally done with the back end, so I want to continue on there and kind of just get it completely finished up before we move on to the front, because I'm honestly very afraid of the front, and I'm really hoping that I can get the whole design lingo down before I get to it. But one thing I want to do before we get too far is this roof is just begging for a roof scoop, so I'm going to put one on there, just a small one. Maybe something like that, yeah, exactly. Although, you know what, I really don't mind the look of this one here, and I'm actually gonna leave it so that it just touches that back glass just that little bit. It's kind of like the car has a mohawk, but at the same time not really. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it the same color as the secondary color, so it theoretically matches the roof. Yeah, that's really unique. That's super cool. I like it. Okay, we need to do something on this back end. Like, there has to be some sort of vent back here for this engine, because as you can see, it's pretty massive. It needs some kind of ventilation, and the frame rate dies every time I move over here as well. That's not a good sign. Oh man, it's too bad we don't have the racing fuel caps as well, darn. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to use the most basic looking one, and we'll put it on the side here. We'll just make it large and in charge. That'll hopefully fill that up. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking for wings and stuff on the back. Before we get to the vents and such, I want to put one of these on there. If there's a flat spot that it'll fit at the very least. These back lips and things like work very infrequently for me, so I'm just gonna put them on really carefully. Okay, I mean, it's kind of working. Okay, so I have a little wing right here, and I'll just make it carbon fiber so you can see it a bit better. But it kind of just fills in this back end. Unfortunately, it doesn't do it quite as well as I'd like. Like, if I move it out there, it just kind of doesn't look right. That's not too bad, but everything back here is already carbon fiber, so I'm just going to make it a body-colored piece. But I'm thinking as well that that's just not enough. We do need to have at least a wing on there, and for that, oh, I have no idea yet. Got a lot of options. Okay, so I definitely like the look of this one, and I can use it to kind of blend with the other one as well. That's not bad at all. That's really nice, actually. If I move this forward, they can kind of merge together, and then I think that's something that's worthwhile. Yeah, this wing doesn't have to be massive. It just needs to be just like this, I think. I might try a different variant of it, but nah, you know what? I like the open back. I think that's going to be better for us. The extra brake light doesn't seem necessary either, so I think I'm just going to leave it nice and empty just like that. Nice. I like this. I like the way this is going. Now there's a bit of a theme here going on because this is a roof scoop, although I mean it's not really doing roof scoop things right now. It lays flat on the top of the car, but it kind of makes a nice like point down to the back here following the window line, and I want to try to use that for vent purposes. Now one could argue I've got enough ventilation on the back, and that is definitely true. That is a lot of vents back there. But I think I might be able to do just a touch better. Okay, so here's what I've done. As you would suspect, the entire back window is blocked off now by body-colored panels, but we have some massive vents in the back which are ramming air down into presumably the intercooler, which is going to be in the back somewhere. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. I extended this all the way down into here, and those are providing ventilation. Theoretically, it probably wouldn't work realistically, but it looks pretty smooth on the back there. I like it a lot, so I think that's what I'm going to go with. Now from this angle, the car looks super nice, and it's going to be a lot lower as well, but I think we definitely need to get this front end dealt with before I go a little bit crazy here. Now what I want to do is invoke this same sort of design language, which I've actually really warmed up to for some reason. I actually like this back end a lot now, and I think I'm going to leave it. Let me know what you think of it. I think it's a little bit controversial in my mind as to whether or not this is good, but it's definitely different. So let's try and do something similar on the front and see what we can come up with. Okay, so I've been designing for a long time, but before we get to the front, I just want to quickly start to do some of the things that are going to allow us to fit the suspension on. And that just means that we can lower the car and kind of see what it'll look like. Oh yeah, this is going to be a very luxurious car, and we will make sure to increase the quality as well. If it ends up being more or less than 900 kilos, we'll adjust this, but we'll come back to it when we need to. Okay, so here's the suspension. Let's go active sport. With a semi-active thing. Oh, the rear tires have blown, so the car doesn't even drive, and a race preset puts us way too high in ride height. So that's kind of what it's going to look like overall. And just to get an idea, we're currently rolling 1,251 kilos, so we'll probably have to take the interior quality down a notch to fix that, but overall it's looking pretty decent. Okay, so I was a little bit worried there for a second in terms of the weight of the car, but I have managed to get it down below 900 just by messing with some things. Specifically, the safety weight was very significant, so I've changed that now. But I think it's time that we fix this front end up. We made it look nice, and we come up with something that also looks decent for this car. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the same thing that I did on the other side over here. This time though, I'll try to fake it in a little bit differently. See, it doesn't quite line up the way you would want it to with the lines of the hood, so it's possible, but it does look a little bit awkward. Okay, slightly ditching that idea just because it didn't quite fit the way I wanted it to. However, I might be able to do it with something else. Okay, so before we start off, let's just try to use one of these basic default bumper pieces and see what that looks like on the front of here, just to have an idea of what it might do. Okay, apparently nothing, and now it's in. But man, oh man, that looks way out of place. Okay, so here's my thinking on this. Let's not go for huge lights, let's just go for very thin LED style ones that kind of just go underneath here, just to try that and see what it does. Basically, I want to be able to, well, the car itself doesn't have big lights in general, but I want to be able to make it like a bit of a stealth look. So it's not going to have anything up here really other than badging. Although badging, I haven't even really thought of yet. I don't know what happened, but all of my regular automation badges have disappeared, so we're just going to be using the lettering, I would assume. Okay, so in order to accomplish this look that I'm looking for, it's not going to be easy at all. Mostly because I have no glow stick mod here. We're just going to be working with the default stuff, because I think that's all I've got. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do for front lights. It's a little bit weird, but it should work out reasonably well. It might not work in Beam too well. It probably is just going to have one light source on each side or something instead of the usual pieces that it should have, but having these on there like that just gives it this nice, like, very sleek look. It's very modern, and I think it fits well with this body, so that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so we do need to have some kind of downforce on the front end, otherwise this is simply not going to work. We need to have some sort of downforce because wheel spin is an issue, and oversteer and lots of other things. We're gonna have to fix all of that eventually. I'm okay with having warnings, but not that many warnings. So let's start putting on some of these lips, just to see which ones kind of fit it best. This is a really wide car, so these lips are gonna be huge. That doesn't mean I'm actually gonna use them though. I might try to make my own. We shall see. Like, look at that thing, it looks like an airplane. Oh yeah, no, these stick out way too much. I think I'm gonna have to do something a bit different. So what we can do if we really need to is do hidden lips. That's not advisable for showcases and stuff, but in terms of just random modeling like this, that's totally fine. I'm a big fan of this splitter just because, or I guess it's a lip at this point, but just because it's so massive. Like, it's such a huge, thick piece that you can move it around and give cars a completely different look because of it. Like, look at that, that's just completely different. Having it body colored is a bit weird maybe, but I might try to put more side pieces on here too. Let me see if I can get that to work. Having it form around is very challenging, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. Basically, you can kind of form it in just like that. It does look a little bit off. Overall, it's pretty smooth, so I think I'm going to leave that that bumper just like it is. Although let's test it out in carbon fiber trim and see what it looks like there. Well, that's interesting. You know, I feel like if I do this, I have to put carbon fiber trim all around it, and I really don't mind, so I'm going to give that a shot as well. Well, that's a little bit of unexpected definition to this that I didn't think was going to happen, but it basically just ties the whole car together in a slightly awkward way. And I'm going to try to put one on the back here too. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, as you would suspect, it does not work at all, so we'll just stick with the front and sides. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting look for the car. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but we'll see it when it goes out on the streets, and it might be good. Okay, just out of curiosity, I'm going to load it up into a photo scene here. Not going to take any pictures or anything, but I just want to see what it looks like when it loads it all together. But that is a much smoother thing there than I thought it was, so that's good. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far. Obviously not done with the front end yet. We need a touch of work there. But overall, I think it's coming together. Let's just look at the back end. Oh, you know what? That does look a little bit better in the photo scenes than it does normally, at least if it's completely out of focus. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about these side pieces yet. We'll come back to that again once the front end is totally finished. From a distance though, it's looking pretty okay. I think this is getting somewhere good. One thing I like is that these lights under here are pretty understated, and they're just kind of hard to see as well if you're not looking for them. Yeah, it seems like this whole side is pretty blank, and then over here it kind of gets busy. And then if you go to the back, it's real busy. Okay, so I decided I don't like those side pieces, so I ended up taking them off. I kind of like the side of this car looking the way it is. It's nice and clean. Something in here might work, but I don't know. I kind of just like those lines the way they are, so I'm going to leave it. Overall though, the front end still needs some work, and that is the last piece of the puzzle. But I think it's time that I actually put some vents on this thing. It needs some sort of design on the front, even if I'm a bit scared to put it there. Oh man, I'm struggling so much with this one. I've just kind of gone ahead and done a couple other pieces. I decided to put a 1 on the back, and it's got a bird symbol on the front of it. But other than that, I've just doubled up the lights on the front, and I'm not sure what else to do. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take some design elements from some of my previous cars, because I'm struggling so much with this. I'm gonna leave this piece here, although I've done that before on quite a few other ones. But I think it kind of matches the front end a little bit, which is nice. Maybe just a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to be that big. Now, something else that I liked that Consider did on his, so I'm gonna kind of steal that idea. Sorry about this, but I like that the front grille here, it just kind of matches with it perfectly. So I'm gonna take that idea and just kind of use it for my own purposes as well. Plus it covers up the joint between the lights, so I think that looks pretty cool. And in order to tie things together just that little bit more, I'm gonna make it a long version, the long boy version. And then we'll shrink it down just a touch so it kind of fits in there nicely. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to call it here. Oh man, it has been a while as I've been making this, but looking at this, I think I'm okay with it. The front end does not have as much detail as I'd like. I'm omitting stuff like a front license plate. I don't think it really needs that, but just kind of this front part is quite large. I'd like to be able to cut it down actually, but overall it seems okay. One thing I wanted to do was just make the lights look like they're actually part of the car, so I've added little vents here, and then this piece here also covers up the ends of them, so it just kind of brings it together and makes it look a little bit nicer. But yeah, overall I think that's okay. It's definitely a unique looking vehicle, that's for sure. I'm particularly proud with the back end. I really like the way that this side went, but as I suspected, I had a lot of trouble with the front. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you would probably do to this front end. There are quite a few options here, but it's tricky because of the slant and everything. This body is a difficult one to design for, no doubt about that. Okay, so it's probably been a while since you've seen this. It has been for me. It's been basically an hour actually. So we're currently going all the way up to 450 Ks. With still severe wheel spin issues and downforce that bottoms out our suspension. Great. Looking at this, realistically speaking, 450 Ks is apparently quite accurate, so let's go ahead and just leave it right there just like that. 7 gears, dual clutch, 0 to 100 in 2.4 seconds. This thing is quick. You can see that our weight is 929.4 kilos, and we actually have a fuel economy of 7 liters per 100 kilometers, which is much better than my current daily driver. So that is very surprising. It seems like I need to buy a 900 horsepower Ferrari to get better fuel economy. Okay, so wheel spin is 27% and it's mostly in first, second, and third. I guess that's kind of what you would suspect. Top speed of 80 in first is actually pretty reasonable. I mean, we could shorten that, but it's just going to make wheel spin worse. So not 100% sure what we should do there. We'll have to come back to that most likely. Like, having short gears is not a bad thing. But we don't want first to be too slow, obviously, otherwise the car is going to feel very slow. So I'll leave it at 60 for now. We might come back to that later. Okay, back over to the wheels themselves. I've actually shrunk them down considerably. One of the things that's causing us to weigh a lot is the rim offsets are massive. Because this thing has pretty thin wheels, all things considered. It doesn't need super thick wheels to drive, but our wheel spin is causing issues. Now, interestingly, something I've just noticed, and I don't know if this has been there the whole time or if I'm just a complete idiot, but there's a recommended width right there on the wheel width thing. So our recommended width is 190 and the current width is 200. So it's just a little bit more than what they recommend. I'm going to turn it up anyways because I think we need that extra width on the front and the back especially. Okay, so it's going to be huge wheels on the back, which is probably what you would suspect because it's rear wheel drive and the engine is on the back, so we would probably be needing something like that. However, I think I'm going to shrink the front end just a little bit more and we'll have to mess with the offsets. But you can see there that isn't too bad. We're falling in line. Good sportiness. Apparently, low drivability and safety are causing us major issues in terms of automation's actual stats, but for me it's fine. Okay, so our sportiness is peaking right now at 99.1%, drivability 89%, not a big deal there, but that's 315s and 245s, which is actually quite nice. I like the look of this, and I think that's going to be nice for us. So if we put some big offset on the rear wheels, then we can put a little bit more on the fronts, and it seems, you know what, I don't want those to peek out too much. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine just like that, as long as the graphs agree with me. Yep, that's looking pretty good right there. Wheel spin's still an issue, even with semi-slicks and carbon fiber rims. Now the rear is where most of the braking is needed because, well, that's where the weight of this car is. However, I think I'm just going to kind of mess that up a little bit, because otherwise we're going to end up with really big back brakes, and that just doesn't make sense. Okay, so I have the brake bias up to 50-50. We're gonna be fine in terms of sizing here, I think. Although, realistically speaking, the back brakes should be all the way up here, and then the fronts, well, that's already way too much power. I think this thing's going to have ABS, otherwise it's just not gonna work well, because the way it's currently set up, it's 50-50, both brakes the same size. Everything is 1-to-1 on this. One trick that I've used many times before, that I'm actually going to use on this as well, is I'm going to turn down the pad type, put it way into comfort territory, and the reason for that is I can make the brakes bigger, and that means that they won't fade as easily just because they're much larger discs. Obviously though, we're going to find out, oh wow, that is, we're like deep into understeer territory there, yikes. Okay, so we have some work to do then. We're currently making great downforce on the rear, but on the front, not so much. We've got a lot of uplift, so we're gonna have to work on that. Even without using the downforce preset, we're still making 638 kilos of downforce at 422 kilometers an hour, which is crazy on the back end. But that means that the front end is going to be spinning us out because, well, it's got uplift, so we have to fix that. So I'm going to sacrifice rear downforce for some front downforce, and that gives us just a little bit. It's not great. Let me put that on. Oh, okay, there we go. We finally have what we needed, and also it's probably going to bottom out suspension. Not too worried about that, but that does fix this graph a little bit. Okay, I've gone into active wing territory now. That basically just increases our weight, but it also means that it balances things out a little bit better. So we go from 724 in the back and then 12 in the front at that speed, back to 50 and 469. So I think that's probably a good compromise. We will have to see though. I can also turn down the rear wing angle, which is going to make things a little bit worse here, but it is giving us more front downforce. Understeer is not great, but oh man, this thing is going to be a handful to drive otherwise. Okay, this is very strange, but this is a little bit better than it was. Basically, if we can get it slightly out of that understeer territory, we'll be doing some good, so that's kind of what I'm going for. But that gives us some front downforce, which is quite needed these days. Like, I'm kind of the opinion at this point, and I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, we will find out, but it seems like having 187 kilos of downforce in the back is better in this case than 750 or whatever it was, if we have more in the front to balance it out. Like, having a lot on the back is good, but then not having any on the front is bad if it's such a huge difference between them. Like, this seems like it would be a lot more drivable than the alternative, so we'll see what that does. I know it's complaining, the rear tires are blowing and stuff like that, but we will see if this actually is functional. Okay, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to compromise a little bit on my compromise, and I'm only going to put it down to 15. So we still have 289 kilos in the rear, but we do have a cool 91 in the front, so that should help us. The best way to deal with this, by the way, is just to put more wings on the front, but I don't want to. I mean, if it doesn't drive well, then I will, but for now I just kind of want to leave it as is. It's crazy that this one wing, and I guess the lip on the back as well, are doing that much downforce for us. With all this downforce messing, we have actually gained top speed, so I'm going to increase this as well, and that is not helping with our wheel spin at all. That put us a little bit out of the proper territory, but that was just because our rear tires were exploding due to our newfound downforce. So I think having it set up like this, we're going to need to change things just that little bit extra. Turn the fronts down, turn the rears up. Oh, that is nice right there. 99.5. That's actually better than it was before. Oh yeah, now we're down to 20s, by the way, for those who were potentially complaining about rim size. And the offset as well is looking pretty decent. Okay, the brakes are entirely screwed up now. Gonna have to redo this one again, and I'll go back through everything else and make sure that it's fine as well. Actually, you know what? Before we do this, because weight is going up, we're either gonna have to inject more power into this car or start taking weight out of it. And what the heck is going on here? Okay, apparently the model of the car has shifted around somewhat, as strange as that is. Okay, so as it turns out, 6-piston carbon ceramic brakes were the only way to make this work nicely. They are extremely expensive, and that's okay. But now our braking is quite nice, from top speed to 0 in 6 seconds. Crazy. Okay, back over here, things are looking pretty normal. Nothing's really changed there. Wheel spin obviously is still an issue, but at this point it's a rear-wheel drive car. There's not much we can do about that unless we have full slicks. This is still broken, and this is just a little bit over what I'd like it to be, but I think we're going to be able to leave it. I guess what we could do, we could take out a seat and maybe go to just half seats. One single seat appears to be ever so slightly less than half seats, so I'm going to leave the one seat in there, and I'll drop it down to a basic interior as well, so we get as close as we can to that goal of 1-to-1. Okay, back over to the suspension. I know this is a very long video, and I apologize for that. We're not going to spend too much time in beam, but sportiness is 99.9%. Oh man, that's beautiful. Okay, let's actually do some self-tuning on the suspension here. Just the race preset alone probably isn't going to work for us. I'm thinking we need to make these dampers just that extra bit harder in the front and the back, just to help with this suspension bottoming out issue. Although we're not having that anymore, I'm guessing it's probably going to happen anyways. Now the rear is particularly important because that's where most of the weight is. We want the car to be firm but not too firm, so I think this is going to be okay. We'll just leave that as is for now. It's just a little bit of a tweaked race preset. I'm trying to get better at tweaking suspension, so that's my purpose in doing that. And overall, the car is looking pretty hot. That's 460 kilometers an hour top speed. Wow, it is. Oh no, how many zeros is that? It's $10.6 million for this vehicle. I don't think anybody would realistically want to pay that. Okay, I think after about 2 hours, I am ready to go with this one. It's got a perfect name for it now. I'm just calling it the 1-to-1, but it's a Magnum Opus 1, and I hope that you like the way that it looks. Let's try it out in Beam and see if it's as terrible to drive as I suspect it is, but you know what, even if it is, I can come back and tweak it a little bit. This is going to be an ongoing project. I'm probably not going to show that just because of how long this video is already, but you'll be able to see it hopefully more in a few episodes. But safe to say I'm feeling a little bit better about things. I'm happy that this car turned out this way. Alright, let's try it out in Beam. So here is what the car looks like in Automation's photo mode, and here is what the car looks like in Beam. The purple is so much different, and also carbon fiber is just not working, and transparency isn't working at all. Yeah, that's just kind of how it works, but I didn't really design this one for Beam. I'm using colors that I wouldn't normally use, and presets that I wouldn't normally use either, but I'm happy to say that this thing is absolutely horrible in terms of wheel spin, but everything else is great, so let's take it for a drive. Oh yeah, the V12 sounds good. I'm thankful for that. The lights turned out pretty decent as well, although awkwardly there seems to be a bit of a red beam somewhere in there, in a place where it shouldn't be. But yeah, the front lights especially, they're working out quite nicely, and you can see that the whole thing lights up, which is really cool. So I'll definitely be using those again in the future. Anyways, let's take it for a drive, and I'll show you what I mean by the wheel spin. Okay, so we can start off pretty much going in first gear without any issues. It goes all the way up to 80 kilometers an hour in first gear. So if you really wanted to, you can do pretty much every road in first gear except for highways. However, if you want to try and go quick, you're going to have to get up into the other 7. And that's where things get dangerous. Because if you accelerate past first gear, you're fine. But as soon as you kind of get up into these high gears, you're okay as well. It's relatively stable at high speeds, which is a good thing. As I say that, I'm about to crash. Well, now you can get a good look at the engine just kind of hanging out the back there. Especially if you're in drive, from what I found, if you try to do like a big acceleration, like I'll attempt to do one right now, it just kind of goes way off on the wheel spin. Like we're moving fast, but our wheels are getting a little bit ahead of us there. And it just makes it really hard to try and drive it straight. You have to be very conservative with this car. It's a rear-wheel drive car, so it's very much a hit or miss in terms of setup. Like, the rear-wheel drive cars can be fast, as we've shown through different showcases, but they are much harder to drive. And you really have to be careful in acceleration, especially accelerating around corners. Now, I'm definitely not the right person to comment on the car's setup overall. I mean, I have driven a lot of cars at this point in, like automation cars, I mean, in Beam, but I can't say that this one's excellent or bad or anything like that. It just seems to be very normal. There's nothing particularly special about it for rear-wheel drive, that is. It would have been good to make it all-wheel drive, but I can't do a mid-transverse all-wheel drive car. They took out that option. So in terms of tests for this, I'm not even sure what to do with it. It's basically a hypercar. Or supercar that's gone on steroids. It's a bit more powerful than your average GTR, but it's also I don't know, maybe not as elegant or luxurious as a Ferrari, somewhere in between. Being 900 kilos and also having 900 horsepower is really cool, and I also like how the brakes are matching as well, pretty much. It's just kind of a weird combination of things, and I don't know, I like it. So yeah, I know this video is already way too long, basically just because that last segment took me 2 hours to make instead of the usual hour, which is fine, it's definitely worth it. I wanted to try and challenge myself to make something good, and I really want to know what you think of it. Base it on the automation look though, don't base it on what it looks like in Beam, please. Now obviously I made mistakes, that just seems to come with the territory. I'm always going to be making mistakes, but yeah, that's, I don't know, it's a pretty decent build. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's a little bit plain overall, but I'm very happy with the back end, at least the way it looks like in automation, not so much in this game. Now I tend to bring cars to this map because I want to test them for various purposes, including this surface right here, which I think is drag strip material, although it could also be wet. Not 100% on that, but let's go ahead and give it a shot and see if it still wheel spins as badly along this, I don't know, 50-meter run or something like that. Oh wow, it wheelies. Okay, now that is pretty cool. Yeah, I can definitely see this car being a very good drag car. I'm very interested actually to try that now. Okay, before we end this video, I'm gonna quickly go to the West Coast map. Let's do a drag run and just see what this thing will do. Okay, firstly, before we get too far, I just want to set a quick benchmark. Let's go ahead and use my current, I don't know, daily driver thing for it. We'll face ourselves against a similar performance opponent, which would be this thing here. Apparently a PC Master Race Special. I do not know when I got that mod, but let's go ahead and give this one a try. Okay, that car does seem to be a little bit quick, and I am genuinely afraid of it, but we'll see if we can match it in terms of performance with this one. Oh yeah, no, that is a little bit spooky, but I might be able to do something here. I know this is totally off topic at this point, but I'm actually invested at this point. Okay, that's pretty decent. Oh, I missed a shift there. Up into 5th, 6th. I think this thing only has 6 gears. Ooh, that was close. 10 seconds. Oh, wow. That was really close. Okay, hold on. Let's, let me try out this new car and see if we can do better than that. Alright, so I spawned it in, and I'm gonna go ahead and race against the V6 R4 Hill Climb Twin Turbo Covet. So I'm probably gonna have a decent challenge here, just as a quick run. This is gonna be fun though, this is gonna be really fun. Okay, so we're up to the line, let's drop it into neutral. That car is really loud. Oh, wheelie right off the line, holy crap, this thing is fast. What on this earth? Okay, how can I even control that? Wow, just look at that setup there. We drove so hard. Oh man, okay, I have to do that again. I just have to do that again. So apparently my Magnum Opus wheelies off the line, which is not great. But let's go ahead and try this one more time. I had to recover it there. And okay, so Wheelies are inevitable here, and there's nothing I can do to avoid that, but just in terms of raw power, that is insane. 9.2, not an amazing time, but I think if we could keep it on the ground, that car would be wickedly fast. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. My Magnum Opus is complete. If you have any suggestions on how to improve it, please feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe. I'm going to keep making good videos like these. I'm going to try to inject a little bit more quality into my content and not just kind of put out stuff that I'm not exactly happy with, as I've been doing lately. Alright, let's take some time to thank those who choose to support the channel via the join button. We have Canadian Steel. Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers, by the way. Overlord, Dr. Ivo, That Riced Out Explorer, QT Bear, Terry Williams, The Most Random Person, Sick D Cars and Stuff, Boris Ramirez, Daniel, and Jacob. Thank you all for your support. I appreciate all of you guys a lot, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm very happy with the way things are going, so yeah, thanks guys.